team that Ben Johnson left to become the Bears head coach, is up next here in the Detroit Lions, who lost both their coordinators to head coaching jobs. Ben Johnson now with the Bears, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn now with the Jets. So two new coordinators they have. They have John Morton as the new offensive coordinator, and Kelvin Shepard is the new defensive coordinator, but still a loaded roster for both of them to work with. And, of course, still Dan Campbell coaching on the sidelines, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL, too. The Lions won their second consecutive division title last year in the NFC North. The last time they won a division title before the last 2 years was back in 1993. So it's been a very long time for the Lions since they won a division title. They have not been back-to-back division champs since the 1950s, before the Super Bowl was even invented, really. So it's been a very long time since the Lions were this good right now. They were 15-2 last year. They lost in the divisional round to the Commanders, too. And Dalton, they did a pretty solid job this offseason, too, getting guys with a B- draft grade and a B free agency grade, too. The biggest strength of this team, even without Ben Johnson, is still really a good offense.
Yeah, on paper, they still should be a really explosive offense, right? When you talk about, look, you've got a guy who's played like a top 10 quarterback in Jared Goff for the last 3 years. You've got an explosive pass-catching core with guys like Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. You got arguably the best duo of running backs in football in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You got one of the best tackle duos in football in Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker, right? There's a couple of questions when it comes to, yes, the play calling and then the shuffling on that interior offensive line. They're going to be very young in there, but if they can protect Jared Goff on the inside, at least roughly close to how they've been protecting him, maybe a slight drop-off, but as long as it's not a disaster on the inside, there's no reason this team really shouldn't be still a top 5 or 6 scoring unit in the NFL. You just look at all of the talent they have, especially at the skill positions. There are so few teams in the NFL that can be this explosive on offense, and they're still going to be looking for that to carry them, even though John Morton's calling the plays now. He's got a boatload of talent to work with. He's still got an excellent tackle duo to work with. You know, when he wants to run the football, it's still going to be a balanced unit. So I think you just look at this team and you still go, yes, they lost some pieces, but they're the highest scoring team in the NFL last year in the regular season, right? I mean, they were just explosive week in and week out. They just don't get shut down because they have so much talent and elite talent at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared Goff for us is a top 10 quarterback in football. And then you also have our number 2 running back unit in football, a top 5 receiving core in football, and a top 15 offensive line in football too. So yeah, they are loaded offensively even without Ben Johnson there. Defensively, and we saw this kind of be a problem last year when Aidan Hutchinson went down with an injury, the depth in their pass rush was kind of lacking last year, because with Aidan Hutchinson, they were the best team in the NFL at getting after the quarterback. Aidan Hutchinson had a 95 pass rush grade by himself through week 6, and then when he went down, the Lions had the 4th worst pass rush grade in the NFL last year. Zadarius Smith, who led the team in pressures when Aidan Hutchinson went down, he was no longer on the team. And then Levi Onwuzurike likely missed all of this year due to injury as well. So Detroit, yes, Hutchinson is back, which is huge because he is like a perennial defensive player of the year candidate when he's healthy. But they're still a little thin at pass rush depth right now.
Believe I saw recently that they are at least talking to Smith about a potential reunion. But no, this pass rush unit, whether they do that or not, they need 2 things. They need Aidan Hutchinson healthy. They need Aleem McNeil healthy as well. Think about how good Hutchinson was last year, right? First of all, a 38% pass rush win rate, which is just ridiculous.
That would have shattered the record if he held that up.
Shattered it. When you consider anything over 20 elite, and he's at almost 40, that's ridiculous. And the fact that he played 5 games last year, and at the end of the regular season, he was still tied for the team lead in pressures. That's how valuable he is to this defense. And after he got hurt, you could just feel it. You just went, okay, how are they going to rush the passer, right? And there was weeks when Aaron Glenn was coming up with blitz packages and things like that. We saw that in certain weeks. But at the end of the day, when you have an elite pass rusher like this, and then another really good one on the inside in Aleem McNeil, you need those guys healthy. This Lions pass rush just lacks depth. I think Aidan Hutchinson, to me, might be the most suspenseful, important injury return of any player in the league this season because of the way he changes their entire defense.
Definitely. Tell me more about their quarterback, Jared Goff, who now without Ben Johnson, what should we expect from him in another year in Detroit?
Well, this is going to be the question, is that the two big questions about the Lions offense, 1, Ben Johnson leaving, and 2, the shuffling on the interior offensive line where Graham Glasgow could be moving to center or it could be Tate Ratledge, are still figuring that out. doubt. But then you've got two guys, let's say at guard in Christian Mahogany, who made 2 starts last year. Those are the only 2 starts of his career. And Tate Ratledge is a rookie. Is Jared Goff going to be protected on the inside? Because in structure, he's fantastic. He had the 7th best play action passing grade in the NFL last season. For 3 years, everything has been so incubated and the environment's been so perfect and ideal for Jared Goff. And that's when he succeeds. When he's clean in the pocket back there and he's allowed to just stand there and make reads and make the right throws, especially over the middle of the field, he can be really good. He is a top 10 quarterback when he's allowed to do that. The issue is the play calling going to be a step down from what it was from Ben Johnson? And are you going to get enough interior protection to where he's not disturbed in the pocket? He may be the most statuesque quarterback that we have in a league now where there's less and less of them. So Jared Goff, look, there's going to be questions about his environment around him, but there's no doubt for the last 3 years, he's made just about all the throws that he's needed to make within this system.
Absolutely. Yeah. A guy in the interior I'm actually really excited to watch this year is Christian Mahogany, who only played about 140 snaps last year, but he had a 91.5 grade on those snaps. So we'll see if the rookie, it was in his rookie year last year, if in year 2 he can extend that over a full season's worth of snaps too. But I'm excited to see if he could really become a great guard there in Detroit. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is clearly the best offensive player. Or maybe not, with Penei Sewell there too. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best receivers in football right now. Arguably the best slot receiver that we have in football. 90 receiving grade for the 3rd consecutive season. He hauled in 68% of his contested targets too. So really 50-50 balls were more like 70-30 balls with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The only receiver in the league to be in the top 5 in both yards and receiving grade from the slot. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is really the security blanket for Jared Goff and that offense, and he has become a top 5 receiver in the NFL in our opinion.
Boy, if it was 3rd and 8 and I just needed a first down, there's not too many guys I would pick over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, the toughness, the route running, the hands are just ridiculous. You mentioned it, the consistency as well with 3 straight 90 receiving grades. He's as reliable as any receiver in football, and no matter how the plays are being called or what system they have to run, they need to get this guy the ball a lot.
So tell me more about Aidan Hutchinson, who is coming off his injury, obviously, but when he was playing last year, he looked like the runaway favorite for Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, you look back at, look, he already established himself as one of the best pass rushers in football in 2023 at a 91 pass rush grade. That year, just one of the best, top 10 at least pass rusher in the NFL. Then last year, he comes out his first 5 games, 95 pass rush grade, 45 pressures in 5 games, I believe 8 sacks in that stretch, 38.3% pass rush win rate. For reference, Myles Garrett, any given year, usually floats between 22 and 25%, right? And that's usually the best mark in football. And Hutchinson being at 38%. Now you can say, okay, he didn't play the greatest tackles in the world those first 5 games, but he did what he was supposed to do against those guys, and he was on his way to having an all-time great season. He was my pick before the year to win Defensive Player of the Year, and he was going to be the clear favorite to do so, and he might have actually been the difference. His injury might have been the difference in the Lions' Super Bowl chances, right? And I know they still would have had to go through Philadelphia, but he's the type of guy that's a difficult assignment for any offensive tackle in the NFL. If he comes back 100% and is anything close to what he was those first 5 games last year, that may be the biggest addition to any team in football for a team that was just missing that presence last year. Him, again, along with Aleem McNeil on the inside. But Hutchinson, look, I like that they added DJ Reed at corner. I think the young corners are going to get better. You have maybe the best pair of safeties in football, but Aidan Hutchinson is the key to this whole thing as the elite pass rusher that he is. Getting him back is going to be such a welcome return for this defense.
Definitely. And a guy I'm really excited to watch on their offensive line next year is a guy actually in Tate Ratledge, who was their 2nd draft pick, not the first one, because Tyleik Williams was their 1st-round draft pick. But Tate Ratledge is a guy that they really need next year as either a starter at guard or center. He expected to play center next year with Frank Ragnow obviously retiring. So Tate Ratledge, who played guard at Georgia, will probably be playing center in his rookie year in the NFL. But he was a dominant pass blocker for the Georgia Bulldogs throughout his entire career. He only allowed 2 sacks across his 3 years as a starter for Georgia with an 88 pass blocking grade across those 3 years. That was a top 10 mark in college football across his 3 years. So it's going to be a question mark, him playing center now after playing guard his entire career at Georgia. But regardless, he is an excellent pass blocker, and Jared Goff should be a big fan of him.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it might still be determined whether it's him or Graham Glasgow. One's a guard, one's a center. But either way, you look at, we talked a lot about the defensive line depth and the lack of pass rush depth. Well, there's not a whole lot of offensive line depth either. And I believe it's Miles Frazier, was it a 5th-round pick? He's already suffered an injury as well. So they really need Ratledge, A, to just be durable and in there like he was for Georgia every single week, but B, be productive, right? Because interior pass protection for Jared Goff, it may be more important, I should say, to Jared Goff than any other quarterback in the league. He's not going to move. He's not going to create out of structure. So how quickly can Christian Mahogany adjust to a full-time role starting? How quickly can Tate Ratledge adjust to the NFL? This is going to be maybe the biggest story aside from the 2 coordinators on the entire team, is how this interior offensive line gels and protects Jared Goff. Because if that interior protection does break down, then you start to talk about this Lions offense having serious problems in the passing game.
Yeah, they're really relying on 2 youngsters in Ratledge and Christian Mahogany to become really good players. After, Ratledge was great in college, and so was Mahogany. Mahogany showed some really encouraging signs and flashes as a rookie last year, but they need both those guys to hit the ground running next year if they're going to remain a Super Bowl contender. And the best bet of the year, Dalton, is one I really love from BetMGM. At plus 300, you can get Aidan Hutchinson to win Comeback Player of the Year, not Defensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. Ben broke it all down to, like you said, led the NFL in pressures, sacks, and pass rush grade before he got hurt last year. And there's a lot of reports coming out right now that he looks back to normal in training camp. And if he's anything close to what he was last year, he's got a great shot at this award. I mean, he could win Defensive Player of the Year next year. And if he's even a candidate to win Defensive Player of the Year, he's probably a shoo-in to win Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating race for that award, isn't it? Because if Hutchinson is that dominant, he certainly can win it. But you think about some of the names who could be up for that. You think about Dak Prescott in Dallas, right? You think about Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco if he's healthy for 17 games, right? I mean, you think about what a race that is going to be. But if Hutchinson puts up, not even, even if it's not those numbers, anything close to those numbers, or if he is a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, that is a really good bet to make. Because again, to me, he's the key to this Lions defense. He really is. And I know they have so many other great players, right? Jack Campbell and Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, DJ Reed now on the outside. But Hutchinson makes everything go, because the second he got hurt last year, you could feel the pass rush disappear. So I think that's a really fun bet. I think with the number of names and big names that you have that could be candidates for that award, Hutchinson's right up there at the top.
Absolutely.
At the top.
So win total set at 10.5 by DraftKings Sportsbook for Detroit right now, after going had a great record last year, obviously going 15-2. But do you think they'll go over or under? Obviously, brand new coordinators there in Detroit. What are your expectations for the Lions in 2025?
I still think they're absolutely talented enough to go over that mark. I've heard a lot of noise lately about people picking big regression and for them to go under. We still got to remember it. I know they're losing both coordinators. This team went 15-2 last year.
Yeah.
And I know they lost to Jaden Daniels, and again, that's a big piece of that is they just did not have any pass rush. And if you don't have pass rush on a guy like Jaden Daniels, that's what's going to happen. But I think they're absolutely talented enough to win this division. They're talented enough to compete near the top of the NFC. There's just going to be a little bit more difficulty. I don't think they're winning 15 again, right? And replacing both coordinators is tough. The bigger one to me that I find fascinating, and I know I'm going to get into this more when it comes to our preview shows during the season, is that you look at this interior offensive line, and you look at a new offensive coordinator, and then you look at the 3 defenses they're playing in this division. Brian Flores, very blitz heavy. Jeff Hafley, very blitz heavy. Dennis Allen, very blitz heavy, right? There's going to be a lot of different looks in their 6 divisional games. So I really think, it's going to be a story. We'll probably talk about it with all 4 teams, but the head-to-head matchups within this division, with this offensive line, with the new set of coordinators, it's going to be fascinating, right? Especially when you think about Chicago and Ben Johnson being there now and knowing the ins and outs of all those guys. So I do think they're absolutely talented enough to win this division. They're absolutely talented enough to compete for an NFC title or even go to the Super Bowl. Right, I think there are big questions, but they should still hit over that 10.5 with the talent that they have on this football team. It's just not going to be quite as easy as it's been the last 2 years.
No, I would say their best chance to win a Super Bowl was the last 2 years, but I still think they'll go over 10.5. I still think this is a playoff team next year. I just don't know if this is as dominant of a team or a true Super Bowl contender like it's been in the last 2 years, but I still think it's a team that could absolutely win the division, make the playoffs, make it maybe into the NFC title game too, but I don't know if I'm picking them to be a true Super Bowl contender in 2025, but it should still be a really good year, even with 2 new coordinators, even with a brand new interior offensive line too. I'm excited to watch Detroit next year, and what's kind of a new era, it feels like, for Lions football in 2025.